Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to share with you this card that I made for my friend's 1-year-old. It was her birthday last week, but I've made this afterwards. I used this Perfect Pandas stamp set. I got this free in a magazine a long time ago now and I've never used it. Her parents love pandas, so that's what I went for. I decided to use a 6x6 white card and for the background to use this iridescent card that I got in a swap recently. I couldn't decide at first between the pink and the lilac, but I did go with the pink. Now this 6x6 card base is from Hobbycraft and it's actually 5 3/4 both ways. I originally cut this card down to 5.5 inches each way and then realised it didn't fit in the embossing folder. So then I trimmed it again down to 5x5 and as you can see it fits perfectly in the embossing folder. I ran that through my scissors, but I couldn't fit that under the camera, which is why obviously you don't see that. And it just looked a bit boring, and I had this off-cut of holographic card from when I did that Star Wars art, and this fit on there perfectly. So I used my tape runner to adhere this, and then I went round with my trimmer and just neatened up all the borders, because I'm quite a perfectionist when it comes to things like this. So I was really happy with that, and then I liked how that looked on the card, but when I stuck this down again with the tape runner, it was slightly too small on one side, so I just had to get the trimmer back out and just trim down the edge of the card very, very slightly. But I really liked how that had come out so far. I really liked the silver behind it as well. So then I went back to the stamp set and I wanted to use the little panda with the bow. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to use any of the other stamps, so I kind of just grabbed a few out. And I don't know about you, but I have such trouble trying to get these stamps off. You can see me tugging at that for ages. But yeah, I picked up a few, the bee, the Just For You heart, and then a little set of hearts. I took this little like static pad thing that I had in my stash because I decided to emboss these, and then I'm using VersaFine ink. I just pressed that down for a few seconds and it hadn't come out quite well on the top two stamps, so I re-inked them. And I think the problem was because I had to stamp this more than once, the embossing didn't go very well. You can't notice too much on it, but as you can see, I had to end up doing that panda 3 times. I should have taken this off here, especially as now, look, oops, I just spilt powder everywhere, but I just decided to chuck the embossing powder on it on the platform just to save me mucking about. And I was able actually to pour that quite back in the pot quite well. I took my Paper Mania heat tool and then obviously I've gone through and heat treated all the embossing, and I didn't even notice that the bottom of that butterfly still hadn't, or bumblebee sorry, hadn't come out properly. I then took these Paper Mania glitter markers and I actually found I had to keep dabbing rather than painting, drawing I suppose. So I sort of dabbed on the little bow and I thought this pink went really nicely with that pink card that I'd chosen for the background of the card. So I went through and I did the little bow in the panda's hair, which I thought was really, really sweet. It made her look younger actually. And then I decided to use the same types of pens to colour in this little sort of balloon heart thing. So I started with the pink to match the bow, and then I pulled out I think purple underneath. And then what I did is I went through all my stash and pulled out all of the pens because I couldn't remember exactly which ones I had, and then was able to kind of plan which ones I wanted where on the hearts coming down. I also pulled out that Wink of Stella brush because I wasn't sure if I was going to use it or not. Excuse me. But yeah, so I carried on going through, coloured in all of these hearts. Didn't think I was going to use the Just For You because it just smudged quite a lot. But decided I was going to use the hearts, so filled all those in and then used a little silver marker to do that last one. I then took this little Wink of Stella brush and I squeezed it way too hard. This is the clear, by the way. I squeezed it way too hard and it really seeped all over that bow, so I had to get a tissue and just kind of dab it up a little bit. But you can't really notice on the finished product. And then I went over the hearts. They're quite glittery anyway because obviously I used the glitter pens, but it just gave a little extra little sheen to it I suppose, and I just cleaned it off on that little scrap of card. And then just used my heat tool just to make sure that was really dry before I started cutting them all out, as it was already plugged in anyway. I did put a little bit on her eyes and then thought it'd smudge, so dabbed it off with my tissue. It hasn't really made much effect at all. I started using these scissors because my hand's really sore at the moment, but I just found them a little bit too fiddly, so I did end up swapping back for my regular big Fiskars scissors. These are my go-to for everything. Absolutely love these scissors, and I've sped this up quite a bit, but I'm quite a perfectionist when it comes to cutting, so this did take me quite a while, but I haven't got the dies to match these stamps, and actually dies are really expensive, so I do quite like fussy cutting. I just find it difficult sometimes when my hands are really sore to keep doing that. So at the moment I only cut out the panda herself and the little balloon kind of bunch of hearts. That's what they made me think of. And then I decided I wasn't going to use the other 2 stamps. So just watching while I cut. Sorry, I'm not used to doing voiceovers, so this is all a little bit new for me still. I did find though that this was starting to smudge on my fingers a little bit because the embossing hadn't worked properly, so I did need to be really careful not to leave fingerprints on the panda. But yeah, so I started fiddling around with how these looked, and it just didn't sit right to me. It felt like it was missing some symmetry on the left hand side. So I thought I would use the bee, but I've had to get one of my black markers and just fill in the bottom because it hadn't stamped properly, and then just dust off the rest of the embossing powder. So then I took my scissors back out and then started cutting this out, and I found this really, really tricky. So I went around the outside first, and then I had to go in with the smaller pair of scissors to go around the antenna, and that was really, really fiddly. But I just thought it was really cute, and there's a sentiment that you'll see I use for the banner at the front, and it's "Happy Birthday, Be Beautiful." So I just thought I really wanted to use the bee in order for that pun to kind of work. So yeah, it took a little bit of fiddling, but I am pleased that I took the time to do this because it just makes a difference. I think it just looks much, much neater like this. So yeah, just snipping off all those little like sharp edges from where I've been cutting, placed it down, and then was really, really happy with how that looked. So I took my tape runner and I put a little bit on the bumblebee and stuck that down, and I think I used tape on the balloons as well. But for the panda, because obviously she's the focal point of the card, I wanted to lift her up, so I grabbed some foam tape from under my desk, and then it turns out, oh no, I haven't run out at this point, sorry. So yeah, so I covered the panda. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of frame at the moment, but I covered the panda with foam tape, and then I struggle so much to get the back of foam tape off. Honestly, I'm useless at it. Absolutely useless. I watch some people use their little picker tools. I suppose I should really try that at some point. And one thing I noticed in that background just now as well is you've got the little bumblebees and the butterflies amongst the hearts and the embossed background, so that looks really cute. So I'm really pleased that I include the little bumblebee. Yeah, so now the panda's stuck on with the foam tape. I just used the tissue so I didn't leave fingerprints on her. Dusted her off a little bit with that little EK Success tool that I have. And then I got my stamp platform back out. And then this is where I took the sentiments. So there's all of these are from that same stamp set, that panda one. I just used my ruler to help me line it up a little bit. So it says happy and then birthday, but they're different fonts, which doesn't bother me too much. And then this one's a different font again. It says be beautiful. So that's what I decided to stamp, and I really liked that Just For You heart. It just hadn't come out very nicely where I'd embossed it, so I decided to stamp it one more time and see how I liked it. So I think you'll see me chuck that down in just a second. Oh, I think I'm just seeing if that's lined up quite nicely, and then I'm adding that last stamp down at the bottom. So I take the same ink, the VersaFine Onyx Black I think it is, and ink up the stamps, stamp them, and actually get really excited because for probably the first time in all my stamping career, woohoo, there's me clapping, it actually stamped right the first time. It's a little bit wonky, the words, but that doesn't bother me too much. So I just used my heat tool to make sure it was really dry because that ink is a pain. It gets stuck to your fingers. I then took the card, took my trimmer, and I trimmed it down to a really narrow like banner. So you see me taking more and more off each time. Did that on both sides, so I had just this really, really long, thin strip of card with the sentiment on it. Then using my scissors on either side, I snipped off the excess, about 1.5 centimeters, and then made little banners on either side. I do quite like doing this. I do this a lot on cards that I make because it's just an easy way to make it a little bit more eye-catching. I didn't quite like it flat down on the card because there were so many elements flat down, so I decided to use the foam tape, and this was when I ran out. So I put this last little piece and then went hunting, but managed to find another roll. So that was handy. Where we can't go out shopping at the moment, obviously, I'm hoping I don't run out of any of my resources. But yeah, I had a little random patch there that was missing, so cut off one more square, I think, just to fill in that little gap so it didn't have a weird little gap, and then struggled again to peel off all the backings. Then I placed that along the bottom, and I was really happy with that so far. I mean, I did actually go on, I made 2 more cards later on that day, and I did go on and add a few more bits to the front, so if you watch the next video you'll see kind of how I change it at a later date, but for now I was happy with it. I then cut out that Just For You stamp, tried to give myself like a bit of a border. I wasn't the best at this actually. I find hearts really hard to cut and keep neat, and where you've got that little bumblebee there as well, trying to keep it like even all the way around, it obviously wouldn't have stood out inside the card like that. So I took another one of these little offcuts of that holographic card that I used for the front, and then gave myself another little border. Sorry, I'm cutting off screen. Gave myself another little sort of ½ inch border, ½ inch border around the heart. Used some double-sided tape just to adhere that to the middle of the card, and then I was really happy with that. And then realised on the back as I was flicking through that actually it just needed one of my little crafty little Amy stickers, because the couple that I'm making this for their daughter, they know about my channel, so I knew that they'd quite like the little tag on the back. And yeah, as I say, here is the finished card. I did actually go back and add a few more bits to it later on, but I was really happy with how this came out. So thank you for watching. Please tune again for the next one to see the next cards I made similar to these. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.